Hello, good day, and welcome to PvP, the show where we pit our two hosts against each other in a game of wit and determination and fierceness. I am your host. I am Cory. I am doing wonderful, and I have my two co-hosts battling it out today. I have David.
What up?
No, screw you. And I have Jeremy.
Hello, players.
Hello, players. By this point, everyone knows what PvP is. You guys are going to duke it out in a series of 5 categories, gaming-related questions. The 5th one is not known to you, but it will be, and you'll have to think on your feet. Before we begin, gentlemen, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great. As you guys know, I finished the Twisted Metal series. I loved it. I'm very glad they did that. I hope to see more.
Nice.
I've been experiencing 1.5 to 2 days of trapped gas in my gastrointestine, so I've not been doing well. And it's hot. It's really hot. That's
gentlemen, let's go to the game show here.
Okay. Intested.
All right, guys. So I sent you 4 topics. What the?
Yeah, there's fireworks going on outside.
I thought it was Jeremy's stomach. It's finally releasing.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Yes. So if you're a big fan of this show, very early on in the show, you know I did not like a game called Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. I feel like it was very formulaic. It continued the trend of just repeating the Dragon Ball Z series, the same episodes and storylines and story beats that they already hit. I found out that there's still more DLC coming for it. 3.5 years later, there's the 23rd World Tournament DLC coming up very soon. Guys, I want to know, when should a game be put to rest? Because for me, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, it should have already been put to rest. But just in general, a game, how long should the DLC go on for it? Debate?
Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
How about you go first, David? You take this one.
Oh, very nice. Thank you. Okay, so I know this isn't a great answer. It's going to depend on the genre of the game. Because personally, like a game like Apex, this is 4 years later and it's still going strong. But like Kakarot, when was the last...
Not to cut you off, but yeah, we'll exclude live service. Live service already has that exception. Like, that's fine. I understand that's ongoing, but go ahead.
But like Kakarot, when was the last DLC released or anything like that? It's probably been a while. And if it's been a while, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, like a lot of people have moved on from that game. Not many people want to go back to that. So as long as the time frames of releasing things, you can kind of keep it going for quite a few years. Like if they released some a couple months ago, and like every 4 or 5 months they're releasing content for it, 3.5 years later, not bad. But if the last DLC they released was 2 years ago, it was weird.
So what's your answer?
My answer is, as long as content is available, you can keep it going.
All right, I'll give you a point right now. I want to hear Jeremy's side. Jeremy, when should a game be put to rest?
Okay.
I'm going to give it a 4-year cap. Based upon, I'll give it 4 years. And the theory of that is that if you're a single player game and you're keeping like consistent updates or DLC drops going, let's say once every 6 to 8 months, right? Then you're going to have 4 or 5 of those content patches in that 4-year span. So that keeps you engaged. But at some point, the game is going to get lower and lower matriculation of new players coming in because the game is more relevant. It may be a new thing that people discover and say, hey, that's cool. But I mean, like this example, for instance, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, 3.5 years after it dropped the DLC. I mean, who is it for? Is it for the 7 people still playing it? I mean, if it is, I guess whatever, but that doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense. Like from a financial standpoint, to invest that much development time and energy still into a product that has such a low player base, it seems like that time could be spent on working and iterating on what you have released for the next version, which hopefully isn't as formulaic and it breaks the standard and it actually pushes the Dragon Ball Z franchise further. So I think but I think 4 years is a nice good cap. It gives you enough of a game where, hey, if we're still kind of jumping into a game 6-8 months after it came out. There's still some new content releases being dropped that can keep me on for maybe another year or two. But I mean, otherwise, it gets you in and out. Bada bing, bada boom, we're done. You know what I'm saying? I think that's it.
I'm gonna give you 2 points for that, David. I'm sorry I cut you off. You can continue your thought.
Well, I was gonna say, a game like The Last of Us, they had one DLC, and I think that was like a year and a half, 2 years later, and that's all that game needed. It didn't have a multiplayer, but that's whatever. So 2 years for a game like that, great. I do like Jeremy's 4-year part. It kind of does make sense, but if Apex wasn't a live service, but they just had these regular releases and they did it for 5 years, and people still bought the game if it wasn't a free game, and they're buying these DLCs, as long as the profits are matching the time spent making all this, because you also have to think about it as a business portion. If they're doing all this and there's not a lot of people buying it, they're wasting time, they're wasting money. Like Jeremy said, they could be putting their time and effort towards a newer game that's going to have more sales and a better release and stuff like that.
I'll give you another point for that. Anything? I'll give you one more chance, Jeremy, if you want to follow up on anything you said.
I think that's pretty much it. I was just thinking about, if you think of something like you mentioned live service, would you classify something like the Telltale games as live service?
No, because they're trying to bring out a product over time. That's like their thing.
Right.
Like
it's like a continuation of a narrative.
Yes. I also wouldn't really include fighting games in that. Fighting games are something that kind of foster a crowd and a group of like dedicated fans throughout the years, and you want that to grow. Something like Kakarot, even if I have to give my opinion on here, which I'm not scoring myself points, but if I was, I'd probably be in the lead by now. 4 years is too long. I want that to be relevant to when the game released. A year sounds like a good point. You played the game, maybe you played it for a month or so, and then a year later, you get another taste of it, and then they move on. But you both have 2 points at this point.
I would say just to add with that, the reason I thought about going more aggressive, like 3 years or something like that, the reason I gave the extra year is because I'm thinking about games like Wildermyth or smaller indie games where those teams just need more time to ramp up and create content in order to put out.
Fair enough. Just do better next question, please.
Okay.
So according to Gaming Bible, this was actually in January, but
this guy is unbearable. This guy is wholly unbearable.
This was in January, but I recently came across this on Twitter. They claim that Halo is being replaced as Microsoft's flagship franchise. Now, whether that's true or not, I think it's an interesting question. I'm not going to go based off these rumors, but if Halo was being replaced as the franchise, the flagship franchise, what franchise should take its place?
This one's you.
This one is me. This is not an easy question because I'm torn between two games. The game that I think symbolizes Xbox and the game that I think should represent Xbox. So I am going to go if Halo is not the flagship, I am going to say that the next flagship is unfortunately Gears of War. Okay. The reason I'm going to say that is because that's like the next biggest like incubated in-house from Xbox from the beginning.
I'm gonna give you a point.
Thank you. From the studio ground up, that's part of their identity is the Gears franchise. Right now, they got to have another one coming out soon, but we all know, I think that within Xbox, besides some other teams, I think the Coalition, who is the team that does the Gears of Wars, there may be Xbox's strongest developing team from a technical standpoint. So I think that that franchise and the team that's behind that would probably be the best position to represent Xbox going forward.
I'm going to stick you with a point. Depending on what David says, I may give you more. David, let's hear your side.
Okay, so...
And this does include Bethesda, Activision, Blizzard. This includes everybody that they own.
So I was going to say, before they started capitalizing on buying other big companies, the only safe bet was Gears of War. when he said, as soon as he brought it up, I'm like, there goes my point. But before you mentioned everyone that they purchased, I was looking through them all, and I think their best bet is Starfield. If they get that going and it goes well, and they start creating a huge universe, start releasing sequels and stuff like that, maybe even prequels, depending on what goes on in the game, they could live off of this new franchise.
Okay, I will give you a point for that.
And I liked Gears, but the last game they released was in 2019.
Jeremy, any follow-up on that?
The follow-up I would give is, yes, it has been a while since they released the new Gears. Mainline, they did do Gears Tactics, which I think was like 2020, 2021. So yeah, they do have to come up with the next follow-up. But I think, again, that's the best representative because it's the old and the new. Like Gears, if you look at the entire franchise of Gears of War represents the transition of Xbox from what it was to what it is. And throughout that whole journey, it's maintained a high quality game, right? The reason I would think about Starfield, but the reason that I would be reluctant on Starfield representing Xbox is because right now, I think there's still a little thing I think people still kind of divorce the perception of Bethesda and Xbox. And I think people may fix Starfield representing Bethesda more than representing Xbox. Still representing both. The other thing is that Starfield is a new game. And if this is kind of leading to another thing we'll talk about, going by what development cycles is, when are we getting the next Starfield? How does that become a franchise that therefore represents them staying forward? We might not get another Starfield for 8-10 years. Right, so that's like another possibility with Starfield not standing out and standing forward. And then the other thing is the Starfield may be great, it may stand in the pantheon, and it could be another thing. But Bethesda's next game is going to be an Elder Scrolls game, and that's going to dwarf Starfield in comparison to that for representation. I think with Gears of War, Xbox has a Xbox grown from a little baby into a giant IP that represents everything that they want to do. And again, it's ushered and it's led by one of the most talented teams internally. Is it
kind of unfair that you're saying this about Starfield kind of being divorced while Gears of War wasn't officially an Xbox homegrown thing? They bought that franchise as well.
It was due to the coalition.
But they've been long enough with them because it was Epic Games, right?
Yeah. But yeah, that's what we're talking about. It's Gears of War has this decade-long affiliation with just Xbox. I agree. 10, 12 years from now, Bethesda may just have that affiliation with Xbox, and then those IPs can maybe represent it, right? But I think as of yet, it wouldn't be able to really. I don't know if Xbox is saying Starfield represents us now. I think another IP that is very much affiliated with Xbox is what would be best to be their flagship.
I gave you 2 points for your argument.
Thank you.
Okay, my counter argument is I agree that Gears of War should be the one to go to, but as I stated, it's been a while since they came out with a mainline game, and the problem with that is, like, for example, Halo 3 is the best, online multiplayer for Halo, blah, blah, blah. If Halo 3 was the last Halo game released, it would have not represented Xbox a long time ago, but it's still represented as the Xbox game series is because they're still releasing games, even if they're not of best quality. And I think for Gears to accomplish the new role, I feel they need to release some more games. So that's why I went with Starfield, because it's going to be out for the new generation, old and new, and it's going to be solely Xbox. And I know that people are going to be, it's a Bethesda game. So that's just, because it's a newly acquired company. But overall, if they keep going well with it, it could be the IP chosen.
Not a bad argument. I'm not going to give you any more points, David, because I do tend to agree with Jeremy. It's a new franchise. That's why I gave him 1 point. We don't know if it's going to be good. If this one slides down, we'll never hear from it again. Mm-hmm. And also, I think to be the flagship, you have to have games coming out at a steady clip. We're not going to see Starfield 2 for a decade, if that, by the rate that Bethesda goes. So I think Gears was a good pick. Obviously, David, you said you would have picked that as well. So it's a little bit of timing here on you not getting Jeremy. I think Jeremy did that on purpose, but I digress. Maybe Call of Duty could have been a good pick. Maybe something like Overwatch. I don't know. Just throwing a couple out there. Elder Scrolls, I think, would have been a great pick as well. So,
yeah, I was trying to think of something that's more general. From a affiliation standpoint and quality standpoint, I actually think the Forza Horizon, the Forza series, kind of represents them.
Luckily, you didn't pick that. That
would
have been negative points right there.
I know.
Yeah, I looked at Forza as well, and I did think of Call of Duty's, but Call of Duty has been around for so long on every single console. I don't think Xbox could do enough job to consider it like the new great Xbox IP.
Okay. Let's stick with the Activision and Microsoft talk here. Now, with the newly purchased Activision Blizzard, I want to know what you guys think should be exclusive and what should be not exclusive. And let's stick with strictly Activision and Blizzard properties here. And when I talk exclusive, I mean console exclusives going into the future. David, I think you're up first this question.
That would be me. And this is kind of a toughie. Because I feel like they might as well just make everything exclusive. Why buy the company? I feel like, the Call of Duty should still be on PlayStation and, probably Overwatches, but keep them off. Keep them all to yourself. You just spent billions and billions of dollars acquiring them. Why not recruit that payment and gather your profits by releasing the game on your console?
I'm going to give you 2 points. I like the boldness.
Well, for for my argument, I think the main games that kind of came to mind as far as like games that maybe they should make exclusive, one would be Overwatch. And that's because Overwatch is the biggest or one of the bigger players in the emerging genre of hero shooters. You can make that exclusive and just completely like dominate that market from a player standpoint of like, hey, if you want to play Overwatch, if you want to play you got your Valorants and over there, but if you want to play Overwatch, which is what everyone wants to play, you got to play it on Xbox. I think that'd be a really good match. And also like another IP that I think would be great as an exclusive, though I know it cuts down on the player base, would be Diablo. And that's just because of that whole aspect of like Diablo feels like it feels like its identity began so much in PC, and Xbox has so much of an affiliation with PC. It just felt like brand wise, it would just have a lot of cohesion. Call of Duty, you keep that bad boy multi and you get as many people playing that as possible. I don't think there's any reason like that. I think the amount of people you'll get to it playing Call of Duty compared to Overwatch, I think it's like maybe a 3-to-1, 5-to-1, 7-to-1 ratio. You get as many people. I think from what I understood, Call of Duty sells more copies on PlayStation. Like just get that money, just get the licensing money from that. But I would take those two IPs as something like, hey, I can completely own the market on this, and have a hero shooter of my own, right? That's like kind of what PlayStation is kind of trying to do a little bit. I feel like with maybe Marathon, you can do that with a IP that already exists, and just bring in Diablo and just have that kind of that unison happen in there.
I'm gonna give you 2 points. I appreciate you doing specifically going at specifics on games, talking about them individual. Those aren't the only franchise they bought. I want to hit on a couple more. Something like Spyro is now Xbox, Crash Bandicoot, something like Tony Hawk, something like Guitar Hero if they decide to bring that back. What about these mid-tier? Because we're talking about the super AAA franchises right now. What about these mid-tier ones? Are those also exclusives in your mind or not exclusives?
Well, I think, when you talk about those mid-tiers, you're talking about brand identity, right? So like when you think of Xbox, can you think of a Crash? I mean, I usually don't, right? I usually think of PlayStation when I think of Crash. Something the same like with the Spyro. Those are IPs where they're mid-tier. I don't know if by making them exclusive you really gain as much of an audience as you would just leaving them multi and just trying to make it accessible to as many people as you possibly can for that niche of a market. So that's where I think like maybe you can kind of leave those multi. I also understand Microsoft doesn't really have like a platformer, so it would maybe be beneficial for them to grab one of those, but I think you just leave it multi. I think you just leave Crash for everyone. I think you leave Spyro for everyone, and Tony Hawk. I mean that franchise doesn't have a lot of juice in it right now. So,
David, do you stick by everything exclusive? Those four are those also exclusive?
Yeah, you might as well. As he was saying, like you're probably not going to pull a lot of people from PlayStation for those kinds of games, but they add up. If you release a Crash and a Spyro and a Guitar Hero, eventually they're going to go, you know what? That Xbox might not be a bad investment.
David, that's exactly what I was thinking as well. Enough of these mid-tier games, you're going to look at the Xbox and be like, well, I should just buy an Xbox. They have so many games. I got to go there. I got to join their ecosystem. So I'm going to give you 2 points for that. I was kind of trying to lead one of you to that. David, you took the bait, so I appreciate it. And then finally, to beat this topic dead here, an Xbox Smash Bros. Is it finally going to happen? They have so many IPs now. They own so many things. Are we going to see an Xbox Smash Bros?
Wait, so you mean like a Smash Bros on Xbox?
Like Xbox's own Smash Brothers with Crash Bandicoot, Master Chief,
right? Having their own characters.
Yes, Tracer, Doom Guy. They have enough now. Marcus Phoenix. They have enough. Do we see one?
We probably see one, but I feel like it won't be good.
Yeah, that's a hard market to try and fight with, because there's all these other ones. There's the one with the Scooby-Doo people. I can't remember what one that is. There's like the Nickelodeon one. They don't do well.
The Sony tried it with PlayStation All-Stars, right? And it was a disaster. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, just wondering. Just throwing it out there as a little extra.
It'd be really cool though.
I think so.
But
all right, guys. This is coming from economic times.com. GTA 6 budget is reportedly $1 billion to $2 billion, the most expensive video game of all time. Now, nice. GTA budget is definitely an outlier when it comes to the entire gaming industry, but we've seen other stories of something like The Last of Us 2 having a huge budget. Are we in for another video game crash coming soon with these budgets?
I think I went first last time, right?
No, David did.
Okay. Darn it. Okay. Well, you know what? I got it. Here we go. Are we headed for another video game crash? The answer is you betcha. And
I love that. 1 point.
And here's why. What we are seeing is the rising costs of game development for these AAA games, with the more available increase of like games, like a supply of games, right? So you may have these games that are costing $1 to $2 billion. Okay, yeah, but there's so many other games that are indie games are accessible, right? That people can get a hold to. So many indie games that are being played. So many like games that are being kickstarted and different stuff like that. So you also have the issue of the rising cost of games. Games just went up $70. Is eventually going to be the standard here. And then so what you have is you have people with a lot of options. You have people with too many games to play, and you have people with no money. And you're a development studio that your budgets are going up really because no one's asking you to spend $1 to $2 billion on developing your game. This is what you're doing, and with all these anticipation of we're going to make the next $1 trillion game, right? So the sights for how successful your game should be keep going up and up, and the budgets keep going up with them. And that will satiate gamers to some extent, but a lot of the satiation is coming at these lower tiers. So what's going to happen is gamers are going to keep finding more value at these lower tier games I can buy for $20, $30, $40 and get the experience that I want and that gratification. And they're not going to end up netting what they need to net in order to make this game. This game's going to cost $1-2 billion and it might not make it. Now, I'm sure they're looking at ways to monetize it like they monetize GTA 5. So they may be an outlier. They may be able to make that money back. But a lot of these companies that are seeking to do that it's not happening. And you see that happening with developers like Ubisoft. Their next Assassin's Creed games, they're shorter and more condensed for a reason, because they're costing too much. So we're going to have to make them smaller so that way that we can still get $50-$60. We can get that almost full price game, but we're not spending as much on development resources, and we can start to actually break even, because the profit is becoming less and less, or they're losing money, and that's going to keep going as other games become more and more accessible. Indie and smaller teams start creating more entertaining and engaging games. That's just what's going to happen, man. People aren't spending all their time in Assassin's Creed or buying Assassin's Creed or GTAs anymore, because they're spending their time in Valheim. That costs exponentially less, provides some exponentially more value, and it's more accessible in a lot of ways. So that's why we're headed towards a crash. Everything's going to go kabooms. That's going to drive the price down, and these lower and mid-tier people, they're going to have to drive the price down as well in order to stay competitive.
A lot of good points there, especially with the Assassin's Creed, obviously going smaller, and you saying that obviously they've chosen to spend this money. No one's forcing them to spend $2 billion on a game. So I gave you 2 more points for that argument.
Thank you.
You betcha. David?
Okay, that's going to be hard to follow. But is there a crash coming? Possibly. I would also kind of go on the yes. So I just looked up a statistic. About 5 years ago,
I like statistics.
The average cost was around 50 to 150 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago. And now AAA games today can cost more than $1 billion. And as you said, GTA 6 is costing about 2. So it's only double of the usual cost right now. And as you guys said, no one's forcing them to do this, but also, who are they going to sell it to with the way inflation is going and everything's going chaotic? People are living paycheck to paycheck more and more every week. More people are joining that, rather, paycheck to paycheck. It's getting crazy out there. And eventually, games don't make the list of what you can afford that month or that year. So if they're raising all these prices to make the games and there's no profit, they're just going to plummet themselves. And as with the indie thing, if people can't afford $70 games, like Jeremy said, they're going to buy the $20, $30 games, and they're just going to put themselves out of business because they're going to bankrupt themselves for spending $2 billion. You need a circle of life. If there's just half of a circle, you're toast.
I'm gonna give you 2 more points talking about the kind of hit me in the emotions with the American family not being able to afford it and the circle of life. I do have a follow-up question for both of you. Both of you kind of agreed, hey, a crash could easily be coming, but you both kind of mentioned people will look for those indie games and stuff. Like if people are looking for those indie games, is that really a crash? A crash beforehand was like a total annihilation of the gaming industry, where it's like games might not be a thing anymore. Like, yeah, some of these bigger companies might fall, but like you don't really see a crash, right? Because you both talked about indie games kind of keeping the gaming alive.
Right. I think the idea of crash though is contextual. When the crash happened, what was like 86 or something, or maybe like around that time, the gaming industry as an entertainment entity was nowhere near the size and profitability that it is now. So a full-blown crash where there's absolutely like no games being sold or whatever, that wouldn't really need to constitute a crash anymore. I think in this industry, you get enough players to just not be able to produce games and develop games, or have to drive their prices down in order to try to salvage something. That's going to drive everything down, right? If they have to lower the price of what they're charging for Call of Duty and anything else, that's going to drive the people who make the forest to also have to drive the prices down to stay competitive. And you're getting to a point where there's not a lot of opportunity to eke out or survive that type of situation. I think that's where like a crash can come in that sense, you know, like,
okay.
Yeah, that's what I more so think about.
So not literally a crash, but for all intents and purposes, it's not the industry that we knew even 5 years ago if this happened.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Another point for that.
Yeah. So I was also kind of thinking of saying like a crash would be like if Sony just blew and we never see another Sony console again. You know, kind of like I feel like what happened with Sega. They had the Dreamcast, didn't do well. Sega crashed. You know, they're still a gaming company. They make, you know, games, but they don't make consoles anymore. So I would count that as a kind of a crash. And as you said, the gaming industry now is so saturated with people making games. I don't think it could ever run out of games being made and things like that unless the entire world gets hit with like an EMP and we're just toast. We don't have electronics anymore.
Yeah,
but
you know what?
I was gonna say something else when I was thinking, and I can't remember what it is.
Well, I gave you a point for the industry's kind of too big to crash at this point.
Oh, that's what it is.
People. Oh.
Back then, when you said you guys like 88 or whatever, when the crash, you know, almost happened, the gaming community and the making sense was so small. Like not everybody could just hop in and start learning code and whatever, you know, at least I don't think so. It was more advanced than that. You know, you kind of needed a little segue to get in there. But nowadays I can just, hey, how do I make a game? I have to download this software and I just have to learn this code and I can make a level of something if I really put the time into it. That was my point.
I appreciate it. I gave you a point a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
You stick with the 1 point that I gave you and be happy with it. So 4 questions down, gentlemen. We're on to the 5th and final question. A lot of arguing here, which I love, but I also love to hear something that people are passionate about. So for this final question, here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to give me your most emotional, passionate speech about your absolute favorite franchise. You guys are close in points, so whoever does it better will probably end up winning. So, Jeremy, if you could just tell me what your favorite franchise is, and David, if you could tell me what your favorite franchise is. Overall. Like, David, I think I know yours, and Jeremy, I think I even kind of know yours, but, you know.
My favorite franchise would be Elder Scrolls.
Okay,
Elder Scrolls. And David?
This is so hard. I know. I have to go with the Resident Evil.
Of course. Who wants to go first?
I think this one's me, I think.
Okay. I mean, It's the final question. So usually final questions kind of like up in the air. Who kind of wants to take it? So give me your most passionate, just tell me why you love Resident Evil.
Okay. I believe it was Christmas one year. And I'm
going to stop you right there. Jeremy, I want you to rip Resident Evil apart as hard as you can and tell me why it's a disgusting franchise that no longer deserves to be on this planet. Go, Jeremy.
This is the okie doke? Are you doing an okie doke right now?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
I want you to eviscerate Resident Evil, all right? And David, you will have a chance to eviscerate Elder Scrolls. So go on, Jeremy.
This is unexpected.
You know, there's a lot of things in the world, things we have to be cautious of, right? And obviously one of those are the drive of profit, the drive of people seeing money as the number one thing that works and doing anything to get that, right? Well, you can see no worse personification of greed distorting humankind than Resident Evil. I mean, that's supposed to be its theme, right? Umbrella Corp, viruses, zombie living undead. What a juvenile take on that entire concept that offers no nuance to the discussion and conversation. I mean, shall we go beyond the theme and talk about some of these game mechanics? Oh, the classic, let's put a fixed camera in a corner and just wiggle around the screen. What kind of gameplay innovation is that? Huh? Dare I say it's even innovation? Heck, you stole it from Dino Crisis. I say, pray tell, that Resident Evil is the worst amongst franchises. Let's talk about the characters. Rebecca, Leo, Amy, whoever else. The most basic human names ever are given to our heroes. There's no triumph here. They're just wandering around in the dark. Oh, and let me guess. Oh, hey, I'm a cop. I gotta go through this city. I've only got 9 bullets on me. Really, dude? Get real. We all know there's at least 15, 16 in a clip. Let's get serious here. Oh, I'm injured. Let me rub a herb on my thigh. What are we doing here? This is nonsense. Okay? Resident Evil is a sham as a franchise. It stole its identity multiple stages in order to get where it's at. Its heroes are bland and unmoving, and its theme is a complete juvenile take on the corruption of greed and corporate wanting.
Wonderfully said. I'm 6 points, I guess. Let's do 6 points.
Thank you.
That was great. Leo. Really like the Leo shout out.
Oh, yeah, it's Leon. That's right. Yeah. It might as well be Leo.
And who is Amy?
I don't know. You tell me.
All right, David, now's your chance. You've been festering this for years at this point. Jeremy always bringing up Elder Scrolls. We've been doing the podcast for years at this point. All right, he's been festering it. David, tell me why Elder Scrolls is the scum of the earth. It doesn't deserve to be a stain on the bottom of your shoe.
Okay, so unlike Resident Evil that has revitalized its genres twice at least, what has Elder Scrolls brought us? Running around in knight armor, killing dragons? Like, I've seen that before. All right? It didn't start this genre. It hasn't innovated much at all. And what was it about? Was it riding dragons or something that was the best we had? Or was that a different franchise?
That's what he was talking about.
Okay, yeah. If the best thing we have is still crap, it's not great. And how many times are they going to release Skyrim? It's been on every console. It's been reiterated. Oh, we added fishing. Look how cool this is. Buy it then for $60. But you know what? Oh, does it have a VR? I don't think.
Yeah.
I don't think it does. Probably not great. Just like the Resident Evil one. But well, regardless of that, it's your favorite. But who's else's favorite? I've never heard anyone else say, you know what? The Elder Scrolls favorite series. Nobody. It's you. You know, and okay, you know what? I can name Morrowind and I can name Skyrim. What are the rest of them? I have no idea. Not a single. But you hear Resident Evil, you know what you can name them? Very easy, because you know what? They keep a very easy list. Resident Evil 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. That's 8 games right there. Very simple. You know what is also simple? It's the PlayStation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom. Elder Scrolls is Microsoft of gaming. Microsoft is Xbox 360. The one. What order are they going? You have no idea. You can barely even remember the names. The Xbox One and the Xbox Series S and X have half of the same name. All right? Where's the naming? I don't understand it. You know? And again, I can name 2 off the top of my head, but that's it. There's what you can roam around. It's an open world. You know what? There's 80 other games that do the same thing.
David,
I was doing this. I'm just.
Here's the deal, guys. Here's the deal. Both those arguments were beautifully told. David, I'm going to give you 6 points as well.
Appreciate it.
I'm going to give you 6 points as well. I found that absolutely hilarious. I love that you guys ragged on each other's franchises, and you both had extremely valid points. I mean, you guys were pointing out the flaws that the other franchises had. There is a winner. The points always. It's tough. It's tough. I feel like this gentleman took the lead on a couple questions, and that was that. And that person would be Jeremy.
Oh, for sure.
17-16.
Ooh.
It was Microsoft heavy today, and I feel like that played into your advantage just a hair. David, the streak that you had comes to an end, but it was a great streak. It was a great streak. All right, it was. This was a very, very, very well fought competition today. Very well fought. I probably could have gave you 7 on that last question, but then it would have been into a tie, and I don't have a tiebreaker question. So because I think you hit his a little bit harder than he hit yours, but I mean, what am I going to do with the tie here, gentlemen? You know, I don't know what to do. So Jeremy, you are today's winner. As today's winner, you get first for final thoughts.
Let me follow up to agree with David. I am also the only person I know that talks about the Elder Scrolls. Let's see here.
Fair, if you can release a game that many times and still have people buying it,
right,
you're doing something right.
The other thing that I just appreciated in your argument was that you were talking about how the Resident Evils are named numerically. Elder Scrolls is also named numerically.
Right, that is true.
Is it?
It's
no one ever says 1, 2, 3,
no one ever says it.
Right, like Skyrim is the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim, and Oblivion, the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind.
Elder Scrolls Morrowind, Elder Scrolls Skyrim. Interesting.
So that was very good.
And I think you could have got another point, David, if you would have just mentioned how big of a glitch fest these games are.
Oh, are they?
Horribly glitch fest. So bad, in fact, that it takes the community to make patches for the game. I think if you would have put that, I would have probably bumped you up, because that's such a big thing for those games.
That is a big one.
Yeah, just how poorly optimized they are at launch and throughout the life cycle, kind of. So, Jeremy, go ahead, man. Take your final.
Well, actually, my final thought is that I just loved everything. I loved every single minute of David's argument, and that's for sure going to be just a clip on YouTube and on TikTok. Yes, that's for sure. It was just brilliant. That's my final thought. Really, I can't dispute.
I mean, you did very well too. Like the whole like fixed camera angle is so annoying.
Perfect.
I can't deal with it.
Yeah. That's it for me, though.
David, go on. Final thought?
All right. My final thought is people who have listened to this just know how much I love Twisted Metal. And as I said earlier, I watched the whole first season. I loved it. It was on Peacock, the first episode. You don't have to sign up or anything. You can watch it and see if you like it. If you do, it's $6 a month for ads. 11 if you don't want the ads. It's 10 episodes, half hour each. Please watch it. I want them to get views, whether they're good or bad, critiques or flawlessness, whatever. I want this to go well. Maybe a game comes out of it, or a season 2 or something. I don't know. That's my final thought.
Nicely said, David. I don't really have a final thought except to say, hey, you guys did a great job. I do this for the laughs, and I had a great time tonight. Like, it was entertaining from start to finish. The winner doesn't really matter. I give out some random points for no reason. It's just the thing I do. It's hilarious hearing you guys argue, and especially that last one. That was a good job. Good job, guys. This was an A-tier episode.
I did not expect that.
And David was ready. He was like, guys, let me tell you why I love Resident Evil so much.
I have a question. Is this prompted from the previous episode where he made a subtle shot, I think, at
it was not, but yes, that's
okay.
That is a good, because David dogged Oblivion last episode. You're right.
Yeah.
So that was actually I didn't think of that when I did this, but yeah. He did. He had a lot of venom. I told you he was harboring a lot of venom.
I knew you said it's been festering. I was like, I don't think. And then I thought, I'm like, you know what, maybe.
Yeah. Like when he said it last week, he was angry.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the order of things that David doesn't like, it was his grandma and then Oblivion. Yeah, and I don't know why.
That seemed like it.
What did I say? I forget.
I mean, I think you said both of them should die, but that's neither here nor there.
It was something about like PlayStation and it's like something wouldn't be accessible, and we were like, yeah, you wouldn't be able to play like Elder Scrolls on it, and you were like,
care about
I don't care, I wouldn't want to play it on there either.
Oh my god, I remember that. You guys kind of hate me for that one.
Yeah, we did.
Matter of fact, it was the last PvP. That's why I only gave him a point.
I told you to minus him a point. I think you did. You did, yeah. So, arguing against Elder Scrolls has not worked out for you, David. Sorry.
It's okay.
But yeah, let's wrap up this episode, gentlemen. If you liked what you heard, there's a plethora of places you can check us out on. We got the Twitter, we got the TikTok, we got the YouTube, all with a variety of thoughts and players, blah, blah, blah. You can search and find us there. You'll see each of us kind of doing our own thing on some of those different places. We have Instagram. If you enjoy our content, if you could subscribe, maybe send it to a friend, that would be great. That's all we ask for. And if you really enjoy our content, we have a Patreon. We have $2, $5, and $7 tiers. Thinker, Player, All Around Slayer, Jeremy's naming conventions are wonderful. So if you like that, maybe subscribe. You get a couple exclusives, early videos, exclusive videos. Jeremy does great reviews. Gentlemen, do you have anything else left to say?
I don't think so. No. Yeah, I think that's it. See ya.
All right, yeah, then goodbye. See you guys next week.